The ship disappears in one ocean and suddenly reappears in another. This isn't magic. It's the greatest engineering marvel that changed the world order. But did you know that building this marvel was more like a horror movie? It was January 1881 when the first Frenchmen arrived, full of dreams, ambitions, and confidence, armed with blueprints and the prestige of the Suez Canal. They believed they would carve a passage between two oceans, connecting the world in ways never imagined. But they never stood a chance. The jungle didn't care for their plans. It buried them. 22,000 men were lost, not to war, but to something worse. Fever that boiled the brain, mud that swallowed bodies whole. The jungle did not give back its dead. They had dreamed of carving history into the land. Instead, they dug graves. Their leader, Ferdinand de Lesseps, the man who had conquered the desert with the Suez, believed he could do the same with the jungle. But he underestimated the enemy. The mountains were not sand dunes. The rain was relentless. The land itself seemed alive, shifting, swallowing everything in its path. Landslides erased weeks of progress in seconds. Malaria and yellow fever ravaged the workforce. The jungle itself seemed cursed, a green, breathing entity that resisted their efforts at every turn. The dream collapsed, taking $287 million with it, the largest financial disaster of the 19th century. The French abandoned their vision, leaving behind a ruined excavation, rusting machinery, and a name forever stained by failure. Some workers, too sick or too hopeless to return home, remained in Panama, their fates lost to history. And then, the Americans came. In 1904, they stepped into a graveyard. The bones of failure were everywhere. Abandoned equipment rusting in the heat, journals half-written and waterlogged, stories of men who coughed blood and walked into the jungle, never to be seen again. But this time, something was different. They fought back against death itself. Dr. William Gorgas waged war with an invisible army. The enemy? Mosquitoes. Invisible assassins spreading yellow fever, malaria, despair. The Americans fought with fire, oil, and science. Swamps were drained, houses were fumigated. Every standing puddle, every water barrel became a battleground. Mosquitoes were massacred, their empire reduced to corpses in puddles. The killing fields of disease became the foundation for a revolution. In 2 years, the death rate plummeted from 200 per 1,000 workers to just 6. It was the first victory of the new era. But disease was not the only enemy. The battle against the land itself was just beginning. The torrential Panamanian rains turned dirt roads into impassable rivers of sludge. Equipment sank into the mud, swallowed whole before it could be salvaged. The sun was merciless, temperatures soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the humid jungle. Men collapsed from heat exhaustion, some never waking up. The air buzzed with the ever-present threat of disease. Yet they kept pushing forward. A task abandoned by one empire had been taken up by another, and the Americans refused to fail. The Culebra Cut stood in the way, a mountain daring men to move it. So they did. With 60 million pounds of dynamite, they shook the earth every single day. A man-made apocalypse. Rocks rained from the heavens. The mountain resisted. Landslides crushed men like ants, their screams drowned beneath avalanches of stone. Still, they dug. 240 million cubic yards of earth were ripped from the land, enough to build a 4-foot-high wall around the entire planet. Trainloads of dirt and rock were hauled away every day, yet the mountain seemed infinite, its mass inexhaustible. It was not just a battle of strength, but of ingenuity. Engineers designed a system of locks and gates unlike anything attempted before. Instead of cutting through the entire isthmus, they would use Gatun Lake, an artificial body of water, to lift and lower ships as if on a grand mechanical staircase. The locks, each weighing thousands of tons, moved with the grace of a clockwork machine, guided by the precise control of human hands. It was an engineering masterpiece, a marvel of synchronized motion that defied nature's barriers. It was a system that would allow ships of enormous size to cross from one ocean to another, an impossibility turned into a reality through relentless ingenuity. A workforce of 75,000 men labored in the heat of hell itself. Caribbean laborers, Italians, Spaniards, Americans, swinging pickaxes, dodging death, breaking the back of a continent. Many of the laborers lived in segregated camps, with different pay scales based on nationality and race. The black workers from the Caribbean were paid in silver, while white workers received gold. The heat didn't just melt metal, it melted sanity. In the relentless tropical sun, men collapsed. Others fell into excavation pits, buried beneath rock and mud. The jungle devoured the careless and the unlucky. Yet, they persevered. And on August 15th, 1914, the world changed. The SS Ancon, a cement-laden ship, moved into the locks. The great steel doors groaned open. Water lifted her like a gentle hand. The Atlantic whispered farewell. The Pacific welcomed its guest. And just like that, a journey that once took months around the deadly tip of South America was now a 10-hour passage. It took centuries of dreaming, decades of struggle, and an ocean of blood. But the Panama Canal was complete. Yet for 85 years, Panama could only watch. This wonder, this triumph, it belonged to America. Not until December 31st, 1999, when the last American flag was lowered, did Panama obtain full control over the canal. The Panama Canal operates like a giant elevator, lifting ships weighing up to 200,000 tons by 85 feet as if they were toys. Each of its 12 locks is the size of a skyscraper. The canal's water flows in both directions, an almost magical feat explained by the difference in ocean levels, creating countercurrents that defy intuition. Since opening, the canal has seen over 1 million transits, carrying more than 8 billion tons of cargo. Ships of all sizes pass through: liners, tankers, warships, billionaire yachts, each paying up to $1 million per crossing. But not all crossings cost a fortune. In 1928, swimmer Richard Halliburton swam across, paying just 36 cents. More than just a waterway, the canal is Panama's heartbeat. Generating over $2.5 billion in revenue annually, it fuels the nation's economy, accounting for about 6% of Panama's GDP. It employs around 10,000 people, providing stable jobs and supporting countless families. The canal is such a national symbol that it is depicted on Panamanian coins and banknotes, a permanent reminder of the country's triumph and sovereignty. Yet the canal faces new threats. Climate change is draining Gatun Lake, reducing the number of ships that can pass. Rising sea levels threaten the fragile balance of the locks. Alternative trade routes, like the Arctic's northern sea route, are emerging. But Panama is not standing still. New water conservation systems, advanced logistics, and expansions ensure that this passage will remain a crucial artery for world commerce. The Panama Canal isn't just a waterway. It's a monument to ambition, to struggle, to the men who tamed a jungle, who defied the impossible, who carved history with their own hands, and won. A ship disappears into one ocean and reappears in another. No magic, no trickery, just the will of mankind, defying the odds forever. Whom do you think should own the Panama Canal? USA, who built it, or Panama, on whose territory it is located?